They're not open.
I don't know. Yeah.
A big one out of the house the other night.
Like 10 of us, we get like 20 cheese.
Lindsay, you ready?
Fries, everything.
This
Yep,
one?
I am, yes.
You ready?
Is this their Sunday place?
Good evening, everyone. If we could stand and say the pledge of allegiance, please.
That's the best.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And just before the meeting begins, please silence your cell phones and note that this meeting is being recorded. If you would call a roll call, please.
Counsel
Clerk Higgins.
Campbell.
Present.
Counsel Demers.
Present.
Counsel DeMambro.
Present.
Counsel Ferrulo.
Present.
Counsel Mercer Bruin.
Present.
Counsel Papalato, absent. Counsel Toro.
Present.
Counsel Viola.
Present.
President Dillon.
Present.
Make a motion that we dispense with the reading of the previous meeting's journal and approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
That's all set. Thank you.
This meeting is being held pursuant to Title III, Section 12 of the Charter of the City of Woburn. His Honor the Mayor has called a special meeting of the City Council to be held in the City Council chambers. Are there any disclosures that need to be made tonight regarding the budget?
Yes, Clerk Higgins, I would like to say that I have a family member who's on the Woburn Police Department, and I'm making that disclosure. Thank you.
Clerk Higgins, I have a family member that works in the planning department. I'm making that disclosure.
Anyone else? That's it.
First item on the agenda, we have the communications from His Honor the Mayor, a special meeting letter calling a meeting to present the fiscal year 2025 budget. A communication dated May 20th, 2024 was received from His Honor the Mayor, Michael P. Concanon, as well as a letter, further communication dated May 20th, 2024 was received from His Honor the Mayor, Michael P. Concanon, regarding invocation of the rule of necessity.
Make a motion that the communications be received, made part of the permanent record.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
That passes.
Make a motion that we suspend the rules to allow His Honor the Mayor, Michael Concanon, to speak on the matter.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
That passes. Mayor Concanon, how are you this evening?
I'm well, Mr. President. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. Thank you for suspending the rules to allow me to speak tonight. I do have copies of a budget cover letter that I'd like to
Make a
submit.
motion to accept as part of the
Second.
record.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
That passes.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have the floors.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, good evening. I appear before you this evening to present the City of Woburn fiscal year 2025 proposed annual budget to the Woburn City Council for your review, action, and approval. This proposed budget is a result of an intentional and collaborative effort that began within the first few weeks of my administration in January. It is the product of countless hours of analysis, discussion, debate, deliberation, and brainstorming between and amongst the various department heads in the city, the mayor's office, the city council president and council members, the school committee chairman and committee members, and the members of the financial team within city government. The goal of this collective effort was to understand and identify the very real needs of the city departments, those who are charged with providing critical services to our residents, while balancing the financial implications of providing for those needs in a challenging economic environment. The process was honest, open, and transparent. I extend my sincere appreciation to the entire team for their hard work, their advocacy, their cooperative approach, and their willingness to work together for the very best outcome. That is not to say that the discussions did not get passionate at times, or that there were not substantive disagreements. But after a robust and healthy debate, our team will come together to continue to deliver a high level of city services in an efficient and effective manner. It was not lost on any of the departments or their representatives, nor is it lost on me, that there are several steps to the budget process, and that the proposed budget as presented to the City Council this evening is not yet complete. It was reiterated and acknowledged at several points throughout the process that the City Council plays a critical role in that process and has the responsibility to scrutinize and the authority to reduce the overall amount of the budget and its components. We look forward to the upcoming City Council Finance Committee budget meetings and to engaging with the members regarding the proposed budget that is before you. Over the past several weeks and months, we met with the departments individually to review and discuss submitted budget requests for the upcoming year. These meetings occurred with each and every department in the city, and the overall city budget before you this evening reflects the outcomes of those meetings. Of course, not all of the department requests were able to be carried forward in the overall budget, but each department head had the opportunity to be heard and to advocate for their departments and those they serve. Particularly regarding the preparation of the school department budget. A group of us met each Wednesday afternoon starting several months ago, usually for approximately 2 hours each time, or more, in my office to develop the FY 2025 school budget. The group included the school committee chair, the superintendent, assistant superintendents, city council president, city auditor, and on different occasions, the school department finance director, school committee finance subcommittee chair, and the mayor's chief of staff. This represents a departure from past practice, in which the school department would simply be given a budget number at some point in the process and work toward that number. The process was changed specifically to foster a more collaborative approach and to develop a budget that would have buy-in from all. This effort led to a better understanding of the realities and actual needs of the school department, and we hope and expect a better school budget. Much like other city department budgets, the school department budget before you is not without compromise or disagreements. It is, however, fully funded, and it does not contain any cuts. By way of background, it should have been no surprise to anyone in the city that the FY 2025 annual budget would be a challenging one. This is primarily, but not exclusively, due to the recent cascading financial impacts within the school department, mostly in the last year and a half, but also owing to the fact that most of the other city departments have been level funded and level staffed, or in some instances, even underfunded and understaffed for many years. And these structurally deficient issues needed to be addressed to ensure that the residents and taxpayers of our city will receive the services that they require. Given these realities, there was no doubt that the city's operating budget would need to be increased this fiscal year, and in turn, the impact of that increased budget will be an increase in property taxes for taxpayers in Woburn. That is the reality that we collectively face. More than half of the overall budget in Woburn is comprised of the school department budget. So it stands to reason that when the school department budget increases significantly, the overall grand total budget does as well. That is the case this year. The reasons for those significant increases include many factors, to include the teachers' union collective bargaining agreements settled after last year's strike, the subsequent additional positions and costs added after the initial budget was passed by the council, which further increased the starting point for this year's budget, the ending of supplemental COVID-area elementary and secondary school emergency relief, known as ESSER, federal funding, the unpredictable yet constantly and dramatically rising increases in special education out-of-district tuition and transportation costs, and other inflation-driven cost increases in district bus transportation, utilities and building services, and state-mandated additional costs as a result of a recently completed Department of Elementary and Secondary Education tiered focus monitoring audit. Added to all of the above financial pressures in our school department, is the fact that the City of Woburn school system has seen a net increase of approximately 350 additional students just since the beginning of this current school year that began last September. It should be noted that the additional students who came to Woburn as part of the emergency migrant crisis constitute only about 20% of that net 350 increase, and the state is providing additional funding for those specific students. So it would be inaccurate to assign the additional expenses solely to the presence of the newly arrived migrant students. Simply put, when the largest cost center in the city's overall budget, being the school budget, experiences all of these dramatic and impactful cost increases in 1 year, there will most certainly be an increase in the bottom line. The only other option available to reduce the overall city budget bottom line would be dramatic cuts in personnel staffing across city government. To take those kinds of actions on the city side would be negligent, and to do so on the school side would lead to further non-compliance per state-mandated DESI TFM requirements. It is imperative that the improved communication, collaboration, and cooperation between the school department financial team and the city side financial team continue and even strengthen in the upcoming fiscal year, as there are some built-in and foundational assumptions and placeholders incorporated in this year's budget. Among those assumptions are a proposed continuation of the additional accommodation of $1,800,000 in city-held funds to cover increased out-of-district special education costs. Such accommodation to be provided after a careful review of special education expenses incurred. This same budget mechanism is currently being utilized in the FY 2024 budget at the request of the school department, with the result being that only $100,000 of the $1,800,000 offset figure is expected to be expended. And if I could pause briefly to thank and give our appreciation to Maureen Ryan for her efforts in that category. She did an outstanding job. Other key assumptions include anticipated savings and offsets as a result of an ongoing school district redistricting plan, a plan primarily put forward to resolve what has been described as a necessary and critical and even unavoidable imminent crisis, which had to be addressed immediately to ensure an equitable education experience for all students. Another outcome of such a plan was the possibility of significant savings due to the more efficient utilization of taxpayer-funded resources. The target number for savings resulting from a redistricting plan has been at times a moving target. Early in discussions with the school department, it was thought that the savings could be as high as $2 to $4 million, with a reasonable placeholder of $3 million set. That number was reduced to $500,000 as the process unfolded, and eventually resulted in a vote of the school committee to reduce the anticipated savings placeholder to zero. This is despite the fact that at the time of this meeting, the latest projected savings numbers for the redistricting options under consideration range from $300,000 and upward. In addition to anticipated redistricting savings, there's also a placeholder for what could be significant savings resulting from a proposed early retirement incentive program, which, if approved by the City Council and implemented, would be subsidized by city reserves. At the time of this writing, the time period for employees to indicate their interest in participating in the ERI program is still open. I believe it's closing today or tomorrow morning. So the actual savings are unknown. Finally, there are additional school department budget funding offsets from the migrant family student reimbursements due to the city from the state, some of which will be carried over from FY 2024, and others of which will be received in FY 2025. Although the state budget has not yet been completed, we have been advised to expect that the reimbursement program will continue in FY 2025. Much like the special education accommodation referenced above, a full accounting of costs incurred and reimbursements received will determine whether additional supplemental funds might be necessary. All of these moving parts will require close coordination between the city and the school department, to include the city council and the school committee. Fortunately, we have a blueprint in place now for the type of information sharing and collaborative review that will be required. It is my expectation that the same dedicated group that developed the school budget will continue to meet at least monthly, perhaps through the established and highly successful WooStat program that the city currently utilizes for police, fire, and DPW, to review the implementation of the approved school department budget, and to evaluate the progress of the key assumptions referenced above. If, after due diligence and close scrutiny of the school department operating budget and anticipated savings and reimbursements, it is discovered that the anticipated savings cannot be realized, the school committee, the city council, and the mayor's office would need to determine next steps, i.e., providing additional funding to the school department. It should also be noted that additional conversations have been ongoing regarding the possibility of other school department line items and costs being held on the city side, again, like the special education accommodation, to include special education transportation costs as well as school facilities costs. These discussions will continue. A breakdown of the anticipated savings that could result from the school department placeholders referenced above are as follows. Redistricting plan, $375,000. Early retirement incentive program, $750,000. Migrant student state reimbursement from FY24 and for FY25, $950,000. To be clear, if these anticipated savings do not materialize, our team, again, to include the city council, of course, would need to revisit the school department budget to determine whether further action was necessary and/or whether additional funding was warranted. To the city side of the annual budget, it represents a primarily level service budget, with the exception of a limited number of additional new employees, to include 5 additional firefighters who are currently in the fire academy, added to reduce excessive overtime costs, a much-needed head of reference librarian, a long vacant head clerk in the conservation department, and a critically important systems manager in the assessors department. These additional positions are necessary to provide the required and expected level of services that our residents deserve and rely upon, and they will ensure that the City of Woburn continues to provide for the effective and efficient delivery of public safety and other integral community-based services. There are some other increases in city department operating budgets to account for the cost of supplies, postage, materials, and equipment, and at the end of your letter, there is a breakdown highlighting some of the approximate increases. So in summary, the school department proposed budget increase this year is $9,986,228.40, or 12.66% above last year's approved budget. While the city side proposed budget increase is $2,851,262.19, or 3.38% above last year's approved budget, for a total year-over-year proposed increase of $12,837,490.59. With all of the above being said, the general fund proposed budget would increase 7.8% to $175,980, $175,980,240.26. And the water and sewer proposed budget would increase 1.79% to $22,142,664.19. The proposed grand total for the fiscal year 2025 annual budget is $198,122,904.45. That's up 7.15% from last year's grand total of $184,895,462.03. It should be noted that many of the collective bargaining agreements between the city and its union workforce are expiring at the end of June. We have included modest reserves in the proposed FY 2025 budget to accommodate reasonable cost of living adjustments. It is our hope that these CBAs can be resolved amicably and expeditiously. We've also made and will continue our commitment to our other post-employment benefits, OPEB, obligations, through the creation and ongoing funding of our OPEB trust. This annual budget does not address all of the long-standing and well-documented needs in almost every one of our city departments. I appreciate the patience and commitment of our department heads and city employees as we chart a course forward to recover from many years of underfunding. and I certainly appreciate the support and understanding of the residents and taxpayers of our city, who will incur an increased financial burden as a result of this proposed budget. The annual budget, as presented, is primarily funded by the tax levy and water and sewer fees. It is partially funded by locally generated receipts, state aid, and Chapter 70 school funding from the state. We are anticipating a moderate to minimal increase in unrestricted state aid and Chapter 70 funding and local receipts. Regarding the FY 2025 residential and personal property tax base, we are cautiously optimistic. However, the forecast for commercial values is less positive, with the expectation that these numbers will be flat at best. We will continue to closely monitor this. The City of Woburn prides itself on our strong financial position, our conservative projections and budgeting practices, and on our solid AAA bond rating. We also pride ourselves on our high level of services provided to our residents and the dedication of our department heads and employees who provide those services. This proposed FY 2025 annual budget reflects those values and priorities and is based on an honest and transparent assessment of the needs of the city, its residents, and its businesses, as well as the ability of the taxpayers of Woburn to afford the costs of those services. That is the balance that we are seeking. I appreciate the constructive feedback and welcome input from the City Council in its upcoming Finance Committee budget meetings with all of the city's department heads. Lastly, I will be submitting the updated capital budget proposal to the City Council at your June 4th, 2024 meeting, and I look forward to reviewing that budget with the City Council to garner your input and your approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Concanon.
Make a motion that his communication be received and made part of the permanent record.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
That passes.
Make a motion that we receive the budget and all pertinent documents for the record.
Second.
A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
That passes.
Make a motion that we return to the regular order of business.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
That passes.
Make a motion that the budget and supporting documents be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Second, and on the motion,
Yes.
prior to the Committee on Finance meeting, if the mayor's office and the auditor's office, and thank you for the presentation, Mayor Concanon, and the detail, if we could get some more detail on what this means for the taxpayers. We do hear, quite clearly in here, the taxes are going up. But also, we hear quite clearly in here that commercial values are less positive, and those expectations of those numbers will be flat. So I personally need to understand how much this is going up for our residents, the number. And I'd like to have that information when the Finance Committee meets. And I'm hoping the Auditor's Office and the mayor can supply that.
Thank you.
I think that's a reasonable question.
I agree.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Anyone else? Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
That passes.
Next item on the agenda is action on any financial matters, including transfers and appropriations pending in Committee on Finance and new transfers and appropriations. Before you on your desk tonight, you have an order that the sum of $100,000 be and is transferred as so stated, $100,000 from stabilization fund to various department salaries.
Make a motion that the committee report be adopted.
Second.
Oh, it's not, it has to go to finance.
I'm sorry. Make
Yes,
a
sorry.
motion that the matter be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Second.
A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
That passes.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion and a second to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned at 7:20,
23.
23. Thank you.